Good afternoon, everyone. Chris Tuck here, West Wickham Health and Fitness and survivorsofabuse.org.uk. So I did a live yesterday about the programme on Channel 5, Women's Health, Breaking the Taboos. And today I just want to continue on with the conversation about that programme, about last night's programme. And we touched, or they touched upon, perimenopause, menopause, and its symptoms, and also heavy periods and how debilitating they can be for some women. Now, being a woman of a certain age, I am perimenopausal myself and I have got some symptoms. And so I watched the programme with a lot of learning new things, really, for me. And I am around many women, health professionals who know a lot more than me about this area of concern. But I also wanted to bring in the point of view or the angle of being a survivor of child sexual abuse and how that impacts all of what I'm saying and sharing with you today. I just thought it would be very, very useful to have an open, honest conversation about all of this. So the programme last night was saying that a third of women in the UK are perimenopausal or menopausal. 75% of them who are under the perimenopause or menopausal tag have significant symptoms, and most do not ask for help. Now, there are 34 apparently symptoms for the menopause, and I'm not going to go through each and every one. You can Google that. But some of the ladies on the programme, they were saying they suffered from heart palpitations, night sweats, breast tenderness, mood swings, can't think clearly, vaginal dryness, which no one speaks about apparently, memory fog, amongst many other symptoms. Some women fly through the menopause with not noticing any symptoms really, whereas others feel suicidal. They lose their self-confidence and they even feel that they're not good enough to do the jobs, the careers that they are in and excelled at. So their self-confidence is battered to a point where they lose that confidence and don't feel they're good enough anymore. So there is a right spectrum here, or a real spectrum here really, of how symptoms will impact people. The one thing that I got from these programs, and you know, Davina McCall does a lot around menopause, Rachel Holmes, that is a mentor for me, she does, and Kelly Reid, they do so much around all of this. I've learned quite a lot, but there's also so many gaps in my knowledge. But knowledge is power, and the things that we can learn that will empower us with our health and our wellness is amazing. There is so much that we can do when we feel such despair, some of us. Now, menopause is a term for when our periods stop and we can no longer conceive. It's essentially a hormonal deficiency, and the perimenopause is the transition leading up to where our hormonal levels fluctuate so significantly that it causes various symptoms. Now, many women will not be assessed or be considered that they're going through menopause or perimenopausal until we get to around the age of 45 and above. But there are many females that have symptoms, some in their 20s and their 30s. Some go through the menopause and it affects their ability to bear children, because obviously once your periods stop and you've gone through the menopause, then you can't conceive. So they were talking about that when you get assessed for being perimenopausal or menopausal, that you should be assessed for your mental health, your cognitive health, your physical symptoms, your genital symptoms, your sleep patterns, your insomnia. They need to look at everything that's going on in your life to determine whether you are actually going through perimenopause or menopause. But at the same time, we can get tested for our hormonal levels, and when there is a drop in those hormonal levels, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, yeah, when there is a dip in those levels for you as an individual, that might indicate, and it probably is an indicator of perimenopause and menopause. So they all talked about on the program things that you can do for yourself through your lifestyle to help with those symptoms. So exercise came up, cutting out alcohol because it is an endocrine hormone disruptor, looking at your nutrition and cleaning that up, looking at your sleep hygiene and how to improve that, and also taking some natural supplements and even HRT, hormone replacement therapy. Now, HRT tops up hormone levels that have dipped. So you could look at that as an alternative for yourself. Don't at this stage rule anything out that might help you. Yeah. So this is about empowering you to take back control over your own health and wellness, whatever that looks like for you. So if you top up on estrogen, for example, that can alleviate symptoms like night sweats, hot flushes, energy dips, mood swings, and sleep disturbances. So when you have a dip in estrogen, you can suffer all of those symptoms. So if we bring those levels up, then those symptoms will be diminished or completely alleviated for some people. Now, progesterone or progestogen protects the lining of the womb from the effects of estrogen. So you need to have that hand in hand, topped up, to make sure that none of the ill effects of estrogen are there for you. So progesterone, I don't know why I have trouble saying this, progestogen protects the lining of the womb. So we need to make sure that if we're looking at one, we're looking at the other. And it also helps with sleep. Now, testosterone can increase libido and helps with emotional resilience, helps with the brain fog and energy levels. So if you think you are perimenopausal, going into menopause, and you've got life-changing symptoms, they need to be addressed. If you feel not yourself, if you feel that you may be going through, my mum used to call it the change, if you're going through the change and you need help with that, then the first port of call, unfortunately, is your GP. Get your levels checked, speak about your symptoms, and get the help that you need. And it might be HRT is the thing for you. And because every single woman has different hormonal profiles, they can tweak the HRT apparently to alleviate your particular symptoms and bring your levels up to what they need to be so you can get on and live your life. And our hormonal profiles are constantly changing, so the HRT dose will also have to change. Now, if you haven't got a GP, an expert in women's health, menopausal health, then you may need to go and find yourself an expert. There are lots of health groups on Facebook that I know personally that other health professionals are running. So you could join a group to get that understanding for other women that are going through it, and also get the latest up-to-date information from different people depending on what their experiences are. So it's always useful to speak to other people that are going through similar to you so that you can find out what was worked for them and so that you can get that help and support for yourself. What works for one person may not work for you, but what works for you if shared with someone else, may help them. So it's always about learning and evolving and keeping an open mind, really, as to what is out there and what may work for you and what may not. So they were talking about the vagina, the vulva, and some of this was really interesting and eye-opening for me because I didn't know all of this. So changes to the vagina, to the vulva, affect 7 out of 10 menopausal women. Now, the vulva is the name for the external parts of our anatomy, and that includes the labia and the clitoris, or the labia and the clitoris. And the vagina is the internal passage that connects the vulva to the uterus. Now, I didn't know that myself, and apparently lots of women do not know this. So it's just a bit of information that might help you not be so closed up about what's going on for you, yeah, to enable you to have the right words to express what is going on for you. Now, vaginal atrophy is when the skin of the vagina and vulva thins and becomes dry and sore. Drying of the vaginal wall can affect your sex life because it's too painful. So the lady that was sharing this on the program, she was saying that she didn't know about vagina dryness and no one speaks about it. That's not a symptom that I have currently got or experiencing, but you may have it. And the name is vulvovaginal atrophy. So that is what it's caused. And it's caused by a decrease in estrogen. The body makes less of the moisture-rich collagen and blood flow is reduced to that area, making the skin tissue of the vagina and the vulva thinner, drier, less elastic and more fragile. So it's a normal part of going through the menopause, or speech marks, the change. And the expert that was explaining all of this to that lady was Dr. Tanya Adib, ADIB, just in case any of you want to check her out. Now, the remedy for vagina, vulva dryness, or any of that I've just explained, you can use creams, pessaries, and you can get that from your GP. I don't know if you can get it over the counter, but you could try asking your chemist to see if that's what they do over the counter or whether you have to go through the GP. But they were also showing on the program laser therapy for this particular symptom stroke condition. And the woman that was sharing all of this, she had undergone a few treatments, very expensive for those that can't afford it, obviously, but those who can afford it, life-changing for this particular person, this particular lady. Now, in last night's program, they were talking about periods and pain from periods and how it can be very debilitating. It can stop you working. It can stop you living your life. The 3 ladies that were sharing their stories, their lived experiences with us. Now, period pain is caused by contractions in the womb as it works to shed, to expel the lining. And it can be cramping pain in the abdomen, or it can be a constant nagging ache, or it can be literally, people were saying they can't walk when they get their periods. Now, they tested TENS machines, they tested heat pads, and they tested essential oil cooling pads. And the outcome was that most of the ladies that were testing, they preferred the heat pad first, then the cooling pads, and then the TENS machine. But they all found different benefits from different things, depending on what their issues were and how they lived their lives. So, you know, it was based on different things. So do check out the program, have a listen and have a learn for yourselves. They also touched upon last night hair loss, alopecia, and the celebrity that they had on was Zoe, a comedian. Sorry, I've forgotten her last name, but if you watch it, you'll find out who it is. And she said that she's always had an issue, but the stress of the pandemic and lockdown really exacerbated her hair loss. And you could clearly see how distressed Zoe was, completely distressed about hair loss. So for some people, their hair is absolutely everything. And it's not until you actually lose it that you understand how important it is as part of your, I assume, your image, your confidence, and your ability just to show up in the world. But they were sharing, what can be done about it. And there was one lady that she went to that created wigs that you could wear to help you show up in the world as the person that you feel you ought to be with the hair that you have but you've lost. And the expert in alopecia was saying that you need to manage your stress in order to manage the condition. And she was also saying to Zoe to have her vitamin D levels checked and her thyroid function checked, just to make sure that if it was maybe a hormonal thing, that it could be fixed and then that her hair would grow back. Thankfully for Zoe, there was signs of her hair actually growing back. So that made her really happy that that was maybe going to happen for her in some form, whether it would be some hair growth or full hair growth. Time will only tell. So, as a survivor, I find talking about anything to do with my female anatomy, can't even say it, my genitals, very triggering, a hard conversation to have. Talking about my period, talking about getting pregnant, being pregnant, giving birth, having smear tests, all of that is just such a hard conversation. But as I've been having these conversations for my Survivors podcast that I do with Beverly Ann, it's called Breaking the Cycle 2 Step Forward. As we've been having these conversations, it's become easier and easier for me to speak about. Even the word vagina, the word penis is very triggering for me. And they are scientific names for those body parts. But I find it physically, I feel my throat tighten, I feel my chest tighten, and I just have a physical reaction to this because of what I've gone through as a child and as a teenager. Why am I sharing this with you? Because there are going to be many, many women and men out there that have the same issues, have the same reactions, consciously, subconsciously. And Beverly and I have just recorded a podcast today about health appointments and what trauma-informed actually means. What it means to actually be trauma-informed when it comes to victims and survivors of child sexual abuse. What that looks like to us, what it feels like to us, and how those appointments are with health professionals and what we need from them in order to feel safe, in order for us to trust, so that when we're in those vulnerable situations, what it means for us. We need to have a pre-conversation about our triggers, our needs, and what needs to happen in the appointment, whatever that health appointment is. So I just want people to really understand that it's not always easy to even verbalize the words, verbalize how it makes us feel, verbalize what's going on for us when we sometimes don't actually know for ourselves. And it's only going through my recovery journey, which I'm still on and will be for a lifetime, and understanding other people's lived experiences, hearing from other people's lived experiences, hearing all of the issues and the challenges, that it doesn't make you feel like you're on your own. It doesn't feel like you're the only one, and it makes you feel like absolutely normal, and what you're going through is normal, and that you can get help and support. But by having these conversations that are authentic, open, and acknowledging how people are thinking and feeling, that we can actually make sure that individuals, whatever the issues and challenges are for that individual, that they can go along to these different health professionals, different environments, and have a good appointment. Yeah, so they're not triggered, and then they don't, they're not broken for days and weeks afterwards. So important that we have that understanding and that compassion for individuals that might have gone through something like myself as a child and as a teenager, or even as an adult that may be in a domestic violence relationship, and whatever challenges that they've got going on for themselves. We need that understanding, and that is baseline trauma-informed healthcare, and it isn't there yet. There are people within the healthcare practice that do understand and that can identify, but there are many, the majority, that are not. So, as always, I would love to have your input, your comments to anything that I've said. If anything's resonated with you, then please get in touch via the comments below. And if you want me to talk about anything else, or if you want to ask any in-depth, intimate questions, then if I can answer it, I will. And if I can't answer it, I will tell you, because I've got to keep myself safe as well. But through EMDR and therapy, I am working through my issues around this, so that as a woman's health and wellness coach, I can be having these conversations with my members, but also with the society that listens to me at large, without triggering myself and keeping myself safe, because that's where I want to be. Because, what happened to me 30, 40 years ago should still not be impacting me now, but unfortunately it is, and I have to deal with it, have to acknowledge it in order to move on. All right then, have a wicked summer's afternoon, and I will see you on another live very soon. Thank you for listening, everyone. Bye for now.